Okay, let's get this event started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is a webinar for authors and librarians and anyone else interested in research publishing. My name is Scott, coming to you from Tokyo, Japan, as always. And our topic tonight is how to ethically use AI in your research writing. On behalf of our friends and colleagues at Bentham Science Publishers, we welcome you to this event. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. You're in the right place. We welcome researchers from all around the world, from all disciplines, and you're most welcome to be here and join us. And if you're joining us again, if you're one of our repeat guests, thank you as always so much for making time for these events. Joining me as always is my illustrious partner in crime, Dr. Gareth Dyke. Gareth, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. How are you, Scott? Everything going well with you?
Great. It's a steaming hot summer day here in Tokyo, but otherwise surviving. I hope everyone around the world is well, keeping well and cool wherever you are, at least in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the southern hemisphere, I hope you're keeping warm.
Absolutely. And we're getting some engagement already in the chat. People are letting us know where they're from. It's great to see you. Nigeria, Pakistan, let us know where you're from, where you're joining us from today, maybe a little bit about your subject area, your area of research. We always love to hear from people. Egypt, I can see flashing up on the screen. Let's get involved. Zimbabwe, fantastic. Scott, what are we talking about today? Great topic.
This is one of our most requested topics. So those who have joined our events before, you'll notice that at the end of each event, we put a survey in front of our guests and ask you to tell us what are your most requested topics for future events. We're always listening and we compiled the results, and this was absolutely the number one most requested topic from all of our previous guests is AI and research writing. So this event is for you, all those who requested it. Gareth and I have done our homework and looked at various tools. The focus today, however, is not just on the AI tools themselves, of course, but how to ethically use them and approach your research writing. So the two key words, in addition to AI, are ethics and writing. We could probably do 30 or 40 hours just on AI tools alone. So we've kept our focus very, very laser focused on AI ethics and manuscript writing. So thanks to everyone for requesting this event. We hope it's useful for you. Gareth, for those joining us for the first time who don't know about your illustrious career, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, yeah, thanks very much. My name's Gareth. I now live in Hungary. I'm a former university professor, been working in publishing now for more than 10 years. But what we do with these events, we try to bring our teaching. Scott's an expert like instructional designer. We bring our research background to try and help our colleagues from around the world understand the journal publishing process, the writing process, and in this event, as Scott mentioned, really, really top number one requested event that we do, how you can use AI, how you can use the variety of tools that are available these days to researchers, but do it in an ethical way. That means that you're going to get your work published in leading journals. And we've got a great audience for this one. I'm seeing people from all over the world mentioning where they're from in the chat: Slovakia, Nigeria, Oman, Pakistan, fantastic Malaysia. Do let us know. We love it to see so many people from all over the world in our events, such as this one. And indeed, yes, we'll be sharing the recording. What happens after these events, Scott? People get a number of gifts in their email after the event, don't they?
Great question. For everyone joining us tonight, we'll share a certificate with you as a thank you for joining this event today. You'll also get access to the full video recording, absolutely free. You can just watch as many times as you like. Feel free to share the recording with your colleagues who are not able to join us. Maybe they're in a different time zone. Share the recording with them. They can watch as many times as they like. And all of this is thanks to our friends and colleagues at Bentham Science Publishers. So a bit about Bentham here. Gareth, tell us a bit about Bentham. Who's Bentham? For those who are not familiar with Bentham as a publisher, tell us a little bit about what Bentham does.
Well, yeah. Well, if you're not familiar with Bentham, you should be. Bentham is a leading scientific, technical, and medical research publisher. They have a portfolio of more than 160 journals, many of them open access. All of them can be converted to open access if you want. So gold, open access, journals. Do have a look because Bentham also has more than 1,300 online and print books, various information solutions for researchers in different disciplines. And of course, Bentham is a member of the Committee on Publication Ethics. Very important for this event, as we'll discuss. All different publishers, by and large, have different guidelines or are following different guidelines, presenting different guidelines to researchers on the use of AI. But fundamentally, those guidelines come from the industry standard Committee on Publication Ethics, right, Scott? That's where all publishers go to learn what should be done in academic publishing.
And speaking of submission ethics, Bentham also uses a uniquely robust double-blind peer review system. Maybe we can mention something about that, Gareth. You, as an editor, can perhaps best explain Bentham's unique peer review system.
Yeah, I was having a chat with a researcher from Saudi Arabia yesterday. He mentioned to me, indeed, Bentham does have a uniquely robust peer review system. If you submit a paper to a Bentham journal, the journal editor is not involved in selecting the peer reviewers. That's done by an online database system, and it's also completely blind. So the editor won't know who the reviewers are, the reviewers won't know who you, the author, is. So that makes it fair. Many people would like to see this across the whole of the publishing industry. Basically, there can be no bias introduced into the peer review system either by the editor or by the reviewer. So a lot of people like it. If you'd like to give one of Bentham journals a go with your next paper, we'd welcome that and we'd love to see you making a submission. Scott.
Fantastic. And as you can see in this slide, Bentham's journals are featured in all the top indexes or indices, depending on what region of English you are speaking. As you can see here, all the big ones are represented. And also, if you are a librarian joining us today, feel free to snap that QR code on your screen, and that will help you to get set up with a free 3-month trial for your institution with no obligation. Scan the QR code, fill in the very brief form, and the Bentham team will get in touch with you and get your institution set up. You get the full Bentham collection, 3 months, no strings, no obligations, no stress. So feel free to sample Bentham's full library at your institution.
It really is a great offer. Perhaps you've got a friend who's a librarian, you'd like to send them this QR code. We will show it to you again at the end of our event, but it does, as Scott mentioned, give you full access, give your institution full unrestricted access to all of the Bentham journals and ebooks for 3 months, absolutely free. But let's get going, Scott. What are we going to be talking about in our event today?
Okay, as we mentioned earlier, we're going to laser focus on a very specific aspect of AI tools, and that is ethically writing your manuscript. So again, we could probably do many, many hours just on this one topic alone, but we'll focus on those elements. And I think you, Gareth, as an editor, have a unique perspective on this because you're seeing submissions coming into the journal from your viewpoint. And it's incredibly important that submissions are aligned with the journal's guidelines in AI policies, isn't that?
Absolutely. But the problem is, as we'll talk about in this event, different publishers are following different guidelines. So authors are often very confused when we do these events with researchers from different parts of the world. People are very confused about how and which AI tools they can use when putting a manuscript together, and indeed how they should be then telling their journal, their publisher about what they did. So we're going to start off now by talking about ethics in publishing and why that matters. We're then going to go on and talk about before writing, outlining and drafting, managing sources, revising and editing, and submitting, all of the different parts of the journal author life cycle that you might find yourself, probably have already found yourself using AI tools. So I'll start off with the first one and then hand over to Scott. But why ethics are really important in the research and publishing life cycle. But first, a poll, and I'm expecting a certain answer to this poll. Scott, how about you? What are we going to get back from our audience?
Well, this changes each time we do it. We've done this event now a couple of times, and I noticed that the results are changing, going up and up each time. Let's launch our poll. Are you currently using AI tools in your research writing regularly, occasionally? Maybe in the past you've experimented, or you're not using any AI tools just now. Let us know if you have specific tools that you're using. Feel free to pop a note in the comments and let us know because there are tools that, even though we've researched this topic quite a lot, there are tools coming up every day that we don't know about. So,
And I used to do this poll when I would do workshops with Chinese researchers. And let me tell you, the last workshop I did with Chinese researchers, almost 100% of people said that they were either regularly or occasionally using AI tools as part of the manuscript writing and publishing process. So let's see if we get a similar answer in our poll today. Much more geographically distributed range of researchers joining us in our event today.
okay, checking out the results here, we've got 38% regularly, 41% occasionally, 13% have experimented, and 8% not using tools yet. So it's a great mix of experience levels amongst our guests today.
Absolutely, but still almost 80% of people joining us in our event today are using AI occasionally or regularly in the creation of research papers. And I bet if we did this event again in a few weeks' time, that number would increase. It has been increasing regularly, as Scott was saying, as we do these events about AI tool use. So let's crack on, let's get involved, let's talk a little bit about the ethics of AI tool use in the writing and publishing process. This matters a huge amount at the moment because, as we all know, we've seen extremely rapid adoption of AI tools by researchers over the last few years. And you'll know this yourself as an active researcher. People are increasingly using AI for writing, analysis, and productivity. I know I am, I know Scott is, everybody we know, all of the researchers that we work with are using AI to some extent. But, with these new capabilities come critical questions for us as researchers, but also for publishers about transparency, integrity, and quality. And as you're going to learn in this event today, journals and publishers are establishing clear guidelines and policies for AI tool use, but they're doing it at different speeds. Different publishers have different requirements to others. And we'll talk a little bit about Bentham's specific requirements in a moment. Next slide, please, Scott. So, why is this really a great time to be a researcher? Well, it's a great time to be a researcher if English is not your native language, as is the case for the majority of our friends and colleagues around the world. This is the English gap, and this is an ethics and equity problem. Why should it be the case that Scott and I, as native English speakers, although in his case, a little bit less so than me, as you can probably hear. Why is it the case that we should be able to get our papers published more easily than other colleagues from other countries around the world? AI tools help global researchers overcome unfair language barriers and biases. Of course they do. That's great. They level the playing field, but we have to balance our use of AI with authenticity and accuracy. Next one, please. As we put our papers into those research articles. Really important.
And just
Uh,
before
so,
we
it,
do, Gareth, it's worth
yeah,
mentioning that you and I have a personal vested interest because we both have spouses who are non-native English speaking researchers. And in my case, even in my family, my stepmother, who's from Brazil, first language, not English. So we see this personally. We understand how unfair this is, using English as a language barrier between your research findings and the world. It's very inequitable. And this is something where AI can really help.
absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So, your institution has a policy on AI use. Evolving university guidelines emphasize academic integrity and responsible AI use in research, but there are various approaches. Transparency, though, as we're going to talk about in this event, is key. Number one thing to do if you're using an AI tool for writing, article creation, or any aspect of the publishing process, you should disclose that at some point to a publisher in the process. This is where you develop integrity and accountability and making sure that ethics in the process are all integrated. So using AI, as we're going to talk about today, without compromising academic values. Next one, please, Scott. This is really, really important. So that's why ethics matters. Now over to Scott to talk about how to do this before you start to write. Scott.
Okay, great. So next we're going to talk about before you begin the manuscript writing process. And of course, a lot of that process involves journal selection and understanding the policy of your target journal. As Gareth was saying earlier, this is vitally important. You don't want to get all excited and use all these tools to create your manuscript and find out that the target journal doesn't accept the tools or AI processes that you chose. Let's take a look how to start this writing process. Now, this is where AI can really support us. Now, once you have your research complete and your data in hand, and again, we could probably do hours of events with our colleagues just on those topics alone. Hopefully, in a future event, we'll bring in some experts in that area to help us talk about the research process itself. But when it comes to the writing process, drafting is one of the areas where AI can really provide strong support. But ultimately, as always, the responsibility for the accuracy, the interpretation of our own findings, that remains ours or yours as authors. So, as Mahmoud mentioned in the comments just now, using AI as a support agent rather than a replacement for your own personal judgment. This is a theme that will come up time and time again during our talk tonight. We don't want to preach ethics to you or preach guidelines to you, but this is vitally important. If you send your manuscript to Gareth and he is an editor, gets a sense that the author's voice is not yours, then we may have some trouble with our submission. Literature reviews are one way to leverage the power of AI. We'll share some tools with you a little bit later that you can use for your literature reviews. In my case, I'm using a tool, and this is not an official endorsement, but I'm using a tool called Jenny AI, and I use it as part of the literature review process. It's great for suggesting sources to comb the web and find papers that I might not have found otherwise in other searches. It intelligently looks at the material you're working on and drafting an outline and suggests more papers for me to read, papers that might challenge or support my findings, but either way, I can expand my reading list. And as I write, it intelligently suggests new sources for me to read and absorb into my literature review. But as always, if AI suggests sources for us, we have to read and absorb and interpret those sources ourselves. I think that's obvious, but it's worth stating that don't let AI suggest something to put as a citation in your paper that you haven't actually read the paper yourself. Here are some very useful literature review tools. This is courtesy of our good friend and colleague, Dr. Adam Golston over at Macrolingo. Jenny AI is the one I'm using. He suggests a number of others, Etherbrain, Elicit, Notebook LM, which is very popular now, I know, as a lit review tool. SciSpace also has lit review functions. These are just some of the many, many sources that you can use for conducting literature reviews. Gareth, this makes the whole lit review process so much easier than back in our day when we were
Oh my
young
God.
people.
I remember going to the library, looking for sources, photocopying papers, making piles of papers next to my desk. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. If you want a comprehensive list of the tools that researchers can use, have a look at Adam's website, macrolingo.com. He has a number of excellent blog posts that contain comprehensive lists of AI tools that are available for researchers. And indeed, I've seen several of these, SciSpace, for example, already mentioned in our chat today.
Great, excellent. Some good comments coming in as well. Thanks everyone for chiming in. Our colleague Hamad says, occasionally AI does suggest outdated sources or invalid links. Yes, absolutely. A great comment, Hamad. So that's why it's important to verify those links. And of course, we're never going to cite something that we haven't read in our paper, are we? So I think that's always the bellwether. We're always going to have to read those papers and properly synthesize them before we cite anything in our paper. Great comment. Thanks for your comment. Mahmoud also asks, can we share the slides? We will share the full video with you tomorrow by email. So thank you for your question. Gareth, this is your area of expertise as an editor, journal selection, pre-submission inquiries. Why is this important for authors?
Well, we always recommend that you do this before you start to write. If you've listened to any of our other presentations, you'll remember perhaps that we strongly recommend that you do have a journal in mind before you begin the writing process. That will help, of course, if you're using an AI agent to write your paper, help you write your paper, you can prompt it. I'm writing my paper for the journal of X, Y, and Z. It will then get the guidelines. It will help you to structure the article. So finding a good journal and also writing those all important pre-submission inquiries, which really speeds up the publication process, reaching out to editors, telling them you have this great idea, this new piece of work that you'd like to potentially get published in their journal, and asking them if they'd like to see a submission. It's a really great tactic. It works really well.
A great question from Stephen. Our guest asks, what's the acceptable percentage of AI writing for your journals, if that means Bentham journals? Well, that's a great question. I don't have a specific number from Bentham. I can inquire with the Bentham editorial team, but actually, no, there isn't a generally accepted percentage um, for most journals. It's, as Gareth was saying earlier, it really depends on the journals. Requirements differ from publisher to publisher and journal to journal. But it's a great question, Stephen. I can try to get an answer for you specific to Bentham journals. Great question. Speaking of Bentham's policies, you can find them on this authorship page. I'll just click on the link here so you can see. And you can see Bentham's specific policies for authorships here. Just click on the link and there we go. There's the authorship criteria. As you can see, Bentham closely follows the big cats and dogs here, ICMJE and COPE guidelines as it pertains to authorship. Of course, AI can never be a co-author, as many of our guests have commented here tonight. Your research writing depends on your own interpretation, your own synthesis, and your own research. So Bentham closely follows ICMJE and COPE guidelines on authorship. So feel free to check out that page for yourself before submitting to a Bentham journal, or if you're submitting to another journal, make sure you check that journal's policies. Time for another poll, Gareth, shall we? Policy
Sounds like a
awareness.
great,
This is an
yeah.
interesting question. Yeah, sorry, Gareth, go ahead.
No, no, I was just going to say, yeah, let's find out how our audience reacts to AI policy.
Okay, let's try this poll here. We also get varying numbers on this poll. How clear to you is your target journals or institutions' stance on AI? Now, the institutional part is of acute interest to me because I work at an institution and I notice that institutions don't always have clear policies. I'm very happy to say that my university does have a very clear stance on AI and is overall AI positive, but has very strict guidelines on how students can use AI to complete their writing assignments. So let's take a look at what our guests feel about the clarity of AI policies at their journal or institution that they're submitting to.
We're getting more comments about the recording, of course. Yes, we'll be giving you the recording in a follow-up email after this event. And don't forget as well, when writing a paper and using an AI tool, publishers and journals are going to be checking your paper using a range of tools that they have available to them to identify which sections of the paper were written with AI. But that's not very accurate. And there aren't all that many great tools that can help to do that. So if your institution has a subscription to Turnitin, for example, then it is worth running your research paper through your institutional subscription to Turnitin before you send it to a journal, because that's one of the main ways that publishers will also be checking your work. And you can preempt any questions that they may have by doing that.
It's a great baseline standard. Our institution also uses Turnitin. It's a great way to to give it a good test before you submit elsewhere. Let's share the result of our poll here. Policy awareness. Oh, this is actually pretty good. 25% of our guests said that the AI stance is clear where they're submitting. 36% somewhat clear, 16% not clear, and 23% don't know. Well, that's actually a bit better than the last couple of times we've taken this poll, isn't it, Gareth? It was a little more skewed towards not clear. Maybe institutions are now and publishers are making more of an effort to make their policies clearer.
They have to. They absolutely have to. They've been very slow, especially publishers, to keep up to speed with the tools that researchers are using. And so, yeah, absolutely. We need clear guidelines. We need to be told what we're expected to do and not do as researchers when making submissions to journals.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone for sharing our poll outlining and drafting. Here's a good one. This is one of the, I think, areas where AI can really be of great use to us, particularly if English is not our first language and we're gathering ideas and putting our paper together. So structure, Gareth, is vitally important. This is what we always say to authors.
We do. We absolutely do. If you've got an idea, a piece of research, a message, you then know your target journal. And of course, check out Adam's blog again. There's a great tool on there that can help you find a journal for your next paper. There aren't that many great tools available, but he has listed them on macrolingo.com. Find a journal for your paper, and then based on that journal choice, you're going to get the structure of the writing. And that's why we recommend doing it this way round rather than writing something and then thinking, where am I going to publish it? Get the structure in place first by picking a journal first. Prompt your favorite AI tool to generate draft section headings or logical sequences. These outputs then spark the right ideas, right? Scott, here's Adam's page.
Great. You can find this blog post, as Gareth mentioned, at macrolingo.com. You can just look for the post here. It's entitled Choosing the Right Journal for Your Research. We definitely recommend checking it out.
We're giving him lots of shout outs today. Hopefully he's listening in and he'll be, you know, appropriately grateful when we see him next time. Creating structure with AI. Let's have a look at the next slide because now we're talking about how you can draft and outline a paper. So rather than having your AI tool write the words, write the actual content of the paper, that should come from you, really, as you are the researcher. You can get the structure. You can get drafts for paragraphs, as we can see here. AI can assist with sentence level phrasing, even word choice. We don't recommend, however, that you use AI to draft entire sections. This leads fundamentally to the loss of your scholarly identity, your scholarly tone. Let's have a look at the next slide. We are here to encourage you to preserve your own unique scholarly voice. That's really, really important. And if you're following what's happening in AI use around the world at the moment, you'll be aware of things like when a company posts a job advert, they get so many almost identical cover letters back to the job advert that they just throw them all in the bin because, of course, everybody or many people are just uploading the job advert and asking ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever to write them a cover letter, and they're not adding their own unique voice. It creates extreme similarity. And of course, you don't want that with your research papers. Editors and reviewers expect an authentic voice. And it's really important that you do have that as a researcher. AI generated text sounds generic, like in my cover letter example. So revise carefully to maintain your own perspective and tone. And of course, you can use AI to check your writing, but don't forget that publishers and journals are also going to check what you send them as well. Next slide. Really important. Let's keep all of this in mind when deciding whether or not to put our work together with AI. Scott's going to walk us through an example now of outlining using Jenny.
Absolutely. And just before we do, some great comments coming in. Our guest Sashi says, of late, increasingly it's observed that Turnitin keeps flagging the manuscripts, which are 100% humanly written as AI written. Yes, as Gareth mentioned, these tools are not perfect. They do have gaps. And it has also been found, and we tested this at my previous organization, the better written a manuscript is, even if it's 100% human written, the better it is, the more likely it is to be flagged as AI written, of course, because it's too perfect. Now, I worked for an author services company for several years, and a very well written manuscript, unfortunately, is more likely to be flagged as AI written. That is true. The tools are not perfect. They're evolving in the same way that AI is evolving. It's sort of like an ongoing war between the
Let's
two.
let's quickly give another shout out to another friend of ours, Derek Newton, and his tool Verify My Writing, which is a way a mechanism for you to use. If you encounter this problem, you've written a paper entirely yourself, you want to get it verified as entirely written by you, then Verify My Writing provides you with that service. So after you make the submission, the publisher can't come back to you and say, hey, this was all AI generated because you've already run it through verifymywriting.com. So do have a look at that. Do support that project because we think it's a great, great.
Agreed. And if you get a chance, Gareth, perhaps you can pop a link into the chat. In the meantime, I'll show an example of very quickly setting up the outline for a paper. Let's say that we have some research done or some results and we need to create a new document. Here you can use a tool like Jenny or other documents to set up your manuscript for you, to structure things for you. So you can actually put a prompt in here and it will rate the quality of your prompt, which is very nice. It will help you with your own prompt engineering. So if, let's say, you can see document prompt here, a literature review on renewable energy policy, for example, or I could write, a systematic review or an essay on the history of artificial intelligence. Based on that prompt, it will set up the outline of a document for me. So here's one that I did a little bit earlier with some prompting here. Let's see if I could find it. This was the one on urban green spaces, and it suggested a structure for me based on the prompt and the preliminary results that I had uploaded. You can see it's basically outlined everything for me. And now I can now write into this. Now, this is entirely ethical. I'm using AI to help me to organize things into a structure. Maybe I reached out to the journal, I looked at some previous papers that were published there and got a sense of the kind of structure that they're looking for. So now I'm writing to that journal's guidelines. And I've got an outline structure here, AI generated ethically, that helps me to now write into this structure and build my paper into this skeleton.
That's what you need, a structure. And if you listen to any of our other writing events, like talking about how to do this, you'll remember that this is something that we really strongly emphasize. And now with AI, you can do it much, much, much easier. But here's a real issue with the use of AI tools in writing, and that's managing sources. And as Scott mentioned earlier, fundamentally, if you cite something in a piece of your own research, you must have actually read that source. Even if it's in a different language, in translation, you must know what that source says.
Absolutely. And the ethics of citing, of course, as Gareth says, and as some of our guests have mentioned today, we have to be extremely careful with our references. We have to verify all of them. And of course, never cite something that we haven't read.
I mean, people have been asking us about this in the chat already. Like, we don't know why or how this is happening. A lot has been written about this, and we can send you some follow-up information. But it is the case that AI tools like ChatGPT hallucinate citations that simply don't exist. And these have been cited by researchers in the literature. And of course, that's a really, really bad thing because I might read one of Scott's papers and look at the reference list. And because I trust him, I might just go and cite those papers in my own next study. And of course, that's creating huge problems for future researchers.
It's the garbage in, garbage out principle, right? As we cite something that itself is based on shaky foundations, then the very foundations of science begin to weaken. And some great questions from our guests here. One of our guests, Hamad, asks, will the links to these tools and blogs be shared in the follow-up email later on? Yes, absolutely. Great question. I will put the links to everything we've shared today, including our friend Dr. Golston's blog. I'll share some links to Bentham's authorship policies and some of the tools that we mentioned earlier for things like literature reviews and citation management. We'll put those all into a follow-up email that'll reach your inbox tomorrow, about 24 hours after this event, together with the full video recording. Great question.
Right. So let's use AI for citation management. Let's use it as a formatter. Like, let's say we have to reformat a paper for submission to a different journal, but let's not use AI as a way of finding references. There are some great tools out there. Cite is one, Mendeley is one. Like, you can use these tools that search for literature for you rather than using chat prompts, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and so on, because they, I mean, I'm sure they're largely accurate, but they could come up with something that you don't want to put into your paper. So
I will say that Jenny is actually quite robust in its suggestions. But again, as long as we have that final judgment of our own, where we are only citing papers that we've actually read that are real peer-reviewed papers, then that eases a lot of concerns. But I will say that Jenny is quite good at recommending papers, not always perfect, not always relevant to my paper, but that's where our judgment comes in. If it recommends something and I find it's not relevant to my topic, well, I don't need to read, review, or cite that paper. So
yeah, Yusra raises a question. Lit maps, of course, lit maps, I forgot to mention a moment ago. Great comment, Yusra. Like Research Rabbit was originally like now it's also part of lit maps, but yeah, lit maps, absolutely. Thank you for that.
great comment from Abraham, who agrees it's safer to use AI to format rather than find a citation ref. Always safer. Again, there are tools, AI tools that I trust to suggest papers to explore, but again, we have to do the homework. We have to actually read the papers if we're going to cite them and make our own judgments on those. Yeah, great comment, Abraham. Thank you. Yeah, AI often generates fake refs. I strongly would uh, not recommend using some of the common chat LLM tools for literature reviews. There are better tools for that. Here's another example here on screen using one of my favorite tools, Jenny AI, for citations. Let's pull up one of my papers here and just show how easy, how painless it is to reformat references compared to when you and I were young people, Gareth. Let's go back to my documents here and pull up one and just change the reference format on the fly. So right now
I'll
you can
speak for
see
you.
some of my references. Sorry, go ahead,
So
Gareth.
I was going to say, speak for yourself. I'm still young, man.
Young at heart, we are, yes. For example, here I've got my references in MLA format, which is a bit strange for a sports nutrition paper. So probably would better belong in something like, I don't know, Harvard or APA. So we can literally just switch these on the fly. And you can see now the reference has changed. Let's try IEEE just for fun. I'm working with engineers right now. So we're using IEEE. Done. So look how simple that was. That used to take hours and hours to reformat something from MLA to Chicago or Harvard. This particular tool, Jenny, has literally hundreds of reference formats, not just the big players like IEEE and Harvard and APA, but it's got all kinds of obscure ones as well. So if you're working in a field that has a specific reference type, chances are an AI tool like this has that reference type. And I love how it reliably manages all these references for me. And if I change them or move them around in the text, then those references also change in the reference list at the bottom. It is a lifesaver and a game changer
Mm.
for
I would
researchers to have
like
this.
to have all the time back that I've spent formatting reference lists over the
Yes,
course of my career. It's been years of my life.
absolutely.
So we're going to
Okay,
move
on
on
to
and
the
talk
next
about,
topic here. Sorry, we're we jumped in at the same time. We're so excited about this fifth topic. Gareth, go ahead, please. Revising and editing.
yeah, this is great. Like we're gonna talk like about the later stages of the production, article production workflow. Let's have a look. I think you've got another poll coming up now, Scott, haven't you, to share with our audience what happens when people have revision challenges.
Our third and final poll for today, I promise. Let's try this one here. I can find it in my tools here. Okay, so this is your challenges in revising manuscripts, and we all have challenges when we're writing papers. Let's see what our guests think about the revision process, which is most difficult for you, because as you can probably guess, we're going to suggest ways that AI can support us during those more difficult revision processes. So let's see what our guests think. You can choose multiple answers here, by the way.
I used to try to go to journals like that had like similar lengths and similar formatting requirements for references when I was working as a researcher. I mean, that's not a requirement anymore, right? Now that we have all these tools to help us, but that's what we used to do. We used to pick journals to resubmit to that were similar to the journal that we'd just been rejected from. I remember that.
Indeed. Now it's so easy just to change the formatting to match the journal, although we could probably talk for 2 more hours about reformatting your paper and changing your paper and preparing it for the next journal to submit to. Let's see what our guests feel about manuscript revision. I'll end the poll here and take a look at the results and share them here. 41% said matching to the target journal, as you were saying, Gareth. And it's still challenging. 53% clarity and readability, absolutely very important. Readability is, if you've seen our other events, we know how important that is. 24% grammar and style issues, definitely. 53% said flow and structure. I absolutely agree. And if you have any other areas, let us know in the comments what's difficult for you in
In
manuscript
terms of
revisions.
revising, yeah, in terms of revising papers, I always use, yeah, I used to find like the revision of the references. And thanks for the comment, Mohsen. Like, I'm sorry that you feel that the presentation is a little bit fast. As Scott's mentioned several times, you will get access to a recording. From that recording, you can, of course, download a transcript, use AI to download and generate a transcript, and then hopefully, like, we do try to keep our spoken English as short and succinct as possible, but we do understand that many of our audience members are not, of course, native speakers. So, as you revise your paper with AI at the draft stage, as Scott was saying earlier, you can flag long sentences, suggest transitions, identify inconsistencies, but AI's role is advisory. You are always going to remain the decision maker. So let's have a look at the next couple of slides as we talk about how you can do this effectively. Editing for correctness. AI catches grammar, punctuation, and style errors quickly, but correctness in form is not the same as correctness in content. These are your responsibility. As we've talked about several times in this event, if you're using AI and introducing content, be very careful that that content references facts are actually correct. Next one, shall we have a look at the next one and see like what else we need to do in order to edit our papers for clarity and conciseness? As we've mentioned several times, it's simplifying language and reducing jargon that can be done with AI tools. This is good, but we don't want to dumb down the writing and lose, I should say, your authentic voice. You, as the author, must maintain precision so that scientific meaning is never lost, right, Scott? This is the key, I think, fundamental point about the use of AI in research.
Absolutely. And as our guest Mahmood shared earlier in the chat, it's best to think of AI as an assistant, and you're still the boss. You're still driving this process. You're still the researcher. You're still the one making the discoveries, interpreting them, and AI is our assistant, and that's all. The judgment is yours. The voice is yours.
So this is how you can do it, like talking about tone, discipline, precision. Different disciplines, of course, require different levels of confidence or caution. And AI tools don't sense the nuances between me writing a paper in geological sciences and Scott writing a paper in humanities and social sciences. They're quite different ways of writing. The precision required on different topics will be quite different. So that's important to keep in mind. So maintaining that writing tone that matches with your field or specifically with your audience is also really, really important. So how can we think about doing this? Let's continue and have a look at the next slide as well. Proofreading is great. You can do this. You can use AI for proofreading your paper. You will need to disclose this to a target journal. You'll need to tell the journal, I used ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever to proofread my paper, much like human editing. As we've mentioned several times already in this presentation today, AI cannot create ideas, analyze results, or share authorship responsibility. Publishers learned this. Actually, there were a number of examples of ChatGPT being listed as a co-author early on in the development of these AI tools, but that is no longer the case.
Okay, just a quick on-screen share, not to take too much time, but some questions from our guests today about the tool I'm using. Again, this is not an official endorsement, but I happen to like this particular one, Jenny.ai. It's my favorite outlining and manuscript writing and citation management tool that I like to use if I'm editing a paper. And just as a quick example of editing here, so there are lots of tools available to us. You can use the AI to tighten up text, to rewrite sections of text. It's actually quite intelligent. And I try to use it very minimally for the reasons that Gareth mentioned earlier. I don't want to lose my own scholarly voice, but I might find something that's a bit too wordy that could be worded more concisely. So I might select a section here and then ask the tool to make it a bit more concise or to perhaps hedge my wording if I'm stating things too boldly for the limitations of my paper. I might ask the tool to trim that down a bit and make it sound a bit less assured and confident. There's many ways you can do that. Another thing you can use with tools like Jenny is the autocomplete function. I tend to turn that off, again, for the reasons that Gareth mentioned, which is to preserve my own writing voice. So let's say I want to simplify this paragraph. I can actually choose a variety of styles here. I can simplify it academically, persuasively, make it more or less persuasive. I can also paraphrase things to, again, to safely paraphrase a piece of text I've quoted or cited in my paper. I can fix flow issues and so on. So let's see if I can simplify this paper, this paragraph academically, and see the changes that it makes. So now it's going to suggest a change for me to make this a bit simpler. Now, again, I'm going to use my own author's judgment here, and I see what the AI has suggested here. It's preserved my citation, which is nice, but actually I'm happier with the original paragraph that I had. So I'm going to make the judgment here to just keep my existing version here. And you can just tell the tool that, no, well, thanks for the suggestion, but I'll keep the one that I originally wrote. So in many ways, you can use these tools to modify your writing, make it simpler, to make it more concise, to make it more or less confident sounding. These tools are quite powerful. Question from our guest, is Jenny a free tool? There is a free tier, but there is also a paid tier. I happen to be using the paid tier, but they do have a free tier as well that you can use. Okay, on to submissions. Gareth is our resident editorial expert.
Here we go with the
What
last
kinds
bit.
of uh, what kinds of cover letters would you hope to receive from authors, and would you accept cover letters that have had some assistance with AI writing? What do you
Well,
think as an editor?
I would say you can use AI to help you draft a cover letter, but make sure you have your own input in there as well, because it's very obvious, very easy to spot an AI generated cover letter. Going to a journal, of course, AI can help you draft a polite, structured cover letter, but you will need to personalize it with accurate details, the journal focus, your unique contribution as an author. And don't forget to spell the editor's name correctly. Recycling cover letters from one journal to the next is one of the easiest ways to get caught out as an author. Make sure if you're submitting to a new journal and you've just gotten rejected from a previous one that you do change the name of that previous journal in the cover letter. But absolutely, you can write cover letters with AI. Let's have a look at the next slide. Do put your own information in there. As a 3-point submission checklist as an author using AI, we would say step 1, verify all the content. Step 2, disclose your use of AI. Many researchers simply don't do that, but it is a good idea and it is required in theory by journals and publishers. And make sure you are confirming your compliance with published policies. And we know that these vary between publishers. That's difficult to deal with sometimes, but you will be in much better shape if you share everything at the outset rather than not sharing your use of AI and then getting caught out later. Let's have a look at the next slide if we can. Sample AI disclosure statements for authors. Bad, of course, no disclosure at all. You don't want to do that because, of course, as we saw in our survey at the start of our event today, about 80% or more of active researchers are using AI in some way in their article preparation. So about 80% of us or more will need to make an AI disclosure statement when submitting. And there's a fair one in the middle. You don't have to be specific. AI was used in the preparation of this manuscript, but it kind of raises red flags potentially at the journal. It's better to be clear, as Scott shows on the green one. AI assisted editing software, Jenny.ai, was used to manage citations and maintain the consistency of reference formatting. Right, Scott? We're getting there with our disclosures of AI in the publishing process.
Right. And a great comment from our guest Shamala, who was saying that it's good to get the tone from the target journal. So look at review recent papers that have been published in that journal, check the journal's guidelines, and that can help to guide your writing for that target journal. Great comment there. Thank you for that. Now, it's also good, so now that we're in the spirit of disclosure, Gareth, to disclose how publishers are using AI. It's only fair if publishers
Yeah.
require authors to disclose our AI use, then you journal editors also should very fairly disclose how journals are using AI.
Yeah, and it's worth keeping in mind, as we've mentioned already, that when you send a paper to a journal, it will get checked, not just by turn it in for plagiarism anymore, but also by, various kinds of detectors for the use of AI tools. So in the case of our friends at Bentham Science, they're using AI for initial manuscript screening, as you can see here, as well as vetting submissions, looking at your affiliations, your verification, any predatory journal checks, publication pattern analysis. Are you submitting multiple articles to multiple journals at the same time, as well as research integrity and reviewer management and matching? And as we mentioned already in the Bentham Science specific case, editors are not involved in peer reviewer selection. This removes bias and reduces the risks of misconduct in peer review. Right, Scott? Should we have a look at the next slide? But it's very fair for publishers to reveal to you, the author, how they do things. And here's a snapshot of the Bentham editorial workflow. What happens from author submission into the editorial workflow. So the journal manager sends the paper to the editor-in-chief. It then goes out for review. And that review process, as you can see here, different color, done entirely away from the desk of the editor-in-chief. So that's how it works at Bentham Science. Of course, Bentham are our sponsors for this event. Let's have a quick look at an example of a submission cover letter. Scott?
Very briefly, this is probably one of the easiest and simplest tasks that you can request an AI tool to do for you. Again, you can use any tool that you want. I prefer to use the chat function and then prompt the tool to draft a cover letter. So I'm going to ask it here to. I'm going to ask to draft a cover letter. Dr. Gareth Dyke for this manuscript, and now the tool is going to draft something for me. Now, I would actually prefer to use my own voice. You can just prompt it, but let's see what the engine comes up with here based on a prompt like that. All right, so it's actually showing me some nice stuff here. It's telling me a bit about the yeah, actually, it's flagging here. It's saying, oh, you are drafting a cover letter for historical biology, but actually, this paper is on sports nutrition. So it's actually telling me to rethink my journal selection, which I really like. So rather than just jump in and stupidly draft a cover letter for me, it's intelligently saying, hey, maybe think about your journal selection. So that's where the tools are coming now. Rather than just dumb bots that we can use to blindly draft something for us, they're sometimes useful assistants to tell us to rethink, some of our decisions. So I like this editorial pushback that it's giving me here. So rather than seeing a blindly generated cover letter, it's actually telling me to rethink my journal selection, which I kind of like.
No, that's great. I mean, that's really helpful, and that's how AI should be used as a helpful agent and assistant rather than a tool to do everything for you. So I think that's really, really useful. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, I love this pushback it's giving me. Good stuff. Okay, to wrap things up, some of the key points, the takeaways that I think we want to leave our guests with today is something that our guests have already I mentioned in the comments several times, and thanks everyone for flagging this. AI is our assistant. It's a tool, and it's never a co-author. Cope says so. ICMJE says so. It's a tool, never a co-author. It's
Yeah, we use it to replace to save time, not to replace our critical thinking and to preserve our scholarly voice. Right, Scott? That's really, really critically important. And you've put some good practice versus bad practice examples here just at the end for our colleagues joining us today.
Yes, this is my corporate compliance training background coming out. Uh, Good or bad case studies. So, in the good case study, we've got an author using AI tools responsibly for things like outlining, grammar reference management, or other things. You might be using it for data crunching and so on. But ultimately, you verify your own outputs. You're responsible for everything that goes into your manuscript that you submit to that journal, and you're disclosing everything transparently. So you've got a very polished and ethically trustworthy manuscript. And the opposite of course, is the bad practice where you're lacking disclosures. You're letting AI blindly make decisions for you or draft entire sections. You don't disclose your use. And what can happen, Gareth, as an editor? What happens when you get a manuscript like that?
Well, it could just get desk rejected. It could get rejected at the outset by the editorial team. It may never get sent out for peer review, which is, of course, the last thing that you want. Or indeed, it may go out for peer review and then get flagged later in the process and then get rejected anyway. So, I mean, take it from us, like you may feel like you're saving yourself lots of time, but sending AI generated articles to journals is not the best strategy for you as a researcher in the long run. So, do put your own expertise in there. You're a researcher after all. You want to be reporting on your research results, not just getting as many papers published as possible. I know it's a big temptation, but let's use AI to help us. I have a quick comment on one of the points in the chat, which is about Bentham Science, social science journals. Unfortunately, the answer to that is no. Bentham does not have any social science journals at the moment listed in the social science citation index. It's mainly a medical, chemistry, biology publisher. Scott?
Great question. Thank you. And I think we went through a lot of our key questions tonight during the chat. We addressed many of our questions live. So sadly, we only have a couple of minutes left for Q&A at the end because we answered our questions as we were going along. But if there are any questions that we're not able to answer today within 1 hour, we'll try to follow up with you individually. Take a look in your inbox tomorrow. We'll be sending a list of these tools and resources that we talked about today, including our friends at Macrolingo, some of the tools that you saw, Jenny, and so on. I saw some questions about PaperPal versus Jenny versus others. I'm not qualified to say which of these tools are best. I can only tell you the tools that I prefer to use. But we'll share this list of tools with everyone in the follow-up email tomorrow. So you'll get that in your inbox, along with a full video recording and a certificate for everyone who joined us today. And we really want to thank everyone for taking time out of your busy day and your busy research cycle to join us. Gareth, this has been a fantastic and engaging event with our guests here. They've really chimed in and shared their feelings, thoughts, and questions. Is there anything you wanted to leave our guests with today before we go?
Just use AI in a responsible manner, and everything will be much, much faster, much, much more efficient, and you will get many more papers published in those leading journals. A lot of people think, by the way, that as AI develops as a tool for researchers, then leading journals, well-known journals, journals with high listings will become much more of trust markers in the scholarly publishing world. So it's getting easier and easier and easier to publish papers in, low level, medium ranked journals, but it's getting harder and harder to publish papers in leading international journals. So good luck with that, everybody. If you have any further comments or feedback, do get in touch with us. Indeed, if you're using a tool, an AI tool that you do not see in this event or you do not see on the Macrolingo website, we'd love to learn about that, how you're using it, what its website is. So do get in touch. And thanks also, Scott. Always great to do these events with you. I learn a huge amount every time. And thanks to Bentham Science for sponsoring.
Thank you, Gareth, and thanks for your editorial expertise and your research expertise. And thanks everyone for joining us today. Have a look at Bentham Science. You can follow them on these social channels here. If you have any questions about Bentham journals, you can reach out to us. We'll get an answer for you directly from the Bentham team. So thanks, everyone. Check your inbox tomorrow for a video recording and some links to the resources that we shared today. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day and best of luck with using AI tools ethically in your research writing. Thank you, Gareth, and thanks everyone. Have a wonderful day.